Kanye West is ordered to pay his ex-wife Kim Kardashian $200,000 a month on child support. That's a lot of money. And do you think that's fair? We know now that Kanye is no longer a billionaire. He's worth $400 million. Kim Kardashian is still a billionaire. Kim's net worth, well, it's $1.8 billion. Should he have to pay her $200,000 a month? That is $50,000 per child a month. That is $2.4 million a year. You know, apparently he and Kim will split the bills when it comes to their children's educational bills and security. Security does not cost $2 million. I don't know who told you otherwise. It don't cost that. You know, it does not cost that. And I get it. They do need the best security. But I don't believe for a second that it costs $2 million. Should Kanye have to pay that? I really want to break this down. And more importantly, so this video, I'm going to have a few points that I want to break down. And just before I even start, yes, we understand that, you know, the courts came to this decision based on his documentations, probably from a year or so ago when they did file for divorce, and probably child support when they started filing. And obviously they wouldn't have taken into account, you know, his recent loss of gross revenue due to, you know, being canceled by Adidas and the Gap, and now his net worth plummeting to 400 million, which is still a lot of money. But so yes, he can still appeal, and he can still probably get a fair payment. But outside of that, I do want to talk about this, right? And a pattern that I've noticed happening in society, in American society specifically. And it's the fact that America specializes in extracting as much funds as possible from Black society to put it in the hands of white people. Oh no, she's always talking about race. Why is she always talking about race? Oh my God, it's not all about race. Why is she talking about race? I talk about race. Why does that make people uncomfortable, right? Because it's like when there's like an elephant in the room and nobody wants to like acknowledge that there's an elephant in the room. There's an elephant in the room. I'm going to point it out. Yes, so America specializes in extracting as much money as possible from Black people. Yes. And you know what? I think it's kind of wild that he has to pay this much money. I think it's kind of wild because they filed for divorce. Yes, she has primary custody, but they filed for divorce, and there was an agreement that like nobody has to pay anything. Sure, she's gonna take care of the kid, but you're worth $1.8 billion in terms of her valuation of her company. Doesn't mean the cash is there. But do you really need $200,000? You, Kim Kardashian, do you need $200,000 a month from him? Who knows? Like, I know she's gonna have primary custody. I just don't think it's necessary to get that much child support. I don't think it's that necessary. Anyway, I want to play this video by Umar Johnson, and he kind of breaks this down really well. Gotta love him. Got to love him. There we go.
The reason I'm against interracial marriage, Envy and Charlemagne, is because marriage is an economic contract. It's an economic contract. Most women do not marry down in status. They marry up. And if you don't believe me, show me a rich white woman married to a broke-ass Black man. Have you ever seen a rich white woman marry a broke-ass Black man? No, you have not, and you never will. Because marriage ain't about love, it's not colorblind, and it is totally economic. So if marriage is an economic unification in a contract, how can we, who don't have enough already, give so much to the white woman and to white people who have already taken too much when we got all these black women out here who will never get married? Only 1 out of every 4 black women in America will ever taste marriage. And half of them who taste marriage will be divorced within 5 years. If you want to save the black family, if you want to save the black family, you have to protect it. And in order to protect it, you have to be against interracial marriage. You can't say, I love the black family, but I don't have a problem with interracial marriage. Interracial marriage is eliminating the black family because it is not providing our women with enough available and able black men to be their husbands.
So it's not just white women. You just feel white women, Asian,
everybody. Nobody should be marrying out the race because there's political consequences, DJ Envy. I'll give you one right now. Naomi Osaka. Am I saying her name right? The tennis sister.
Mm-hmm. Naomi Osaka, yes.
Naomi, I love the sister, right? She knocked off the greatest of all time, the GOAT, in Serena. But guess what? Who is she representing in the upcoming Olympics? Is she representing Haiti? No, she's representing Japan. So here you have a half African sister, an African sister because there's no such thing as half African. Our genes are dominant. So you got an African sister with a Japanese mother, and instead of going back home to your father's blood, Haiti, to represent the Africans in Haiti, you're instead going to represent the Japanese who've never done anything for black folks and are part of the Trilateral Commission with the American white power structure. But who taught her to play tennis? Did her Japanese mother teach her to play tennis, or did her black Haitian father teach her to play tennis? Her black Haitian father taught her to play tennis. It's the African DNA. It's the African ancestors in that girl that's responsible for her tennis success. But instead of representing us, she's going to go represent the Japanese. Well, this is what you got to deal with when you make mixed race African children.
I think...
Whew, he said a lot there. But, oh God, I think there's a little bit of a delay. He said a lot there. And I think it's just so on the nose when I think about the World Cup and how like all these black players are representing France and the UK and all these countries. You know, they're representing them, but they don't play for their own African countries. And it's kind of like, but you look in the UK, when it comes down to it, they don't, whenever there's a win, or someone scores a goal, they show the white people that scored the goal. They don't show the black people that score the goals. And they're complaining about racism, but you're complaining about racism, but why don't you go play for your country? Why do you keep playing for like the UK? Why don't you go to your country of origin? But I digress a little bit. Let's focus on this conversation about interracial marriages. And yes, when it comes down to it, as Umar Johnson pointed out, you know, when white women traditionally marry black men, they're wealthy. Oh man, they're wealthy. They only marry wealthy black men, right? And because you don't see them marrying middle class men. I'm sure it's happened before, but it's not common. You don't see them marrying men that are of lower income unless they themselves are from far lower, right? Because marriage is an economic contract, like you said. And as much as I really truly believe that everybody should marry who they love and marry in those ways, when you look at Kanye West, who's a very unique situation, the self-hatred, the internalized racism, it's just oozing out of him. And so when I look at Kanye West, you know, I don't think that he's with Kim Kardashian because of love. I think he's with her because it gives him more proximity to whiteness, especially having half black kids. I think that he's seeking white validation. We've seen all the disgusting things he said, supporting, you know, White Lives Matter, which is like, look, all lives matter. Oh God. But we understand the reason why it's a problem when someone says white lives matter or all lives matter, because it's a counter to the fact that black lives are neglected in America and treated like they don't matter. So people are saying, guys, black lives matter. But the counter to that is, well, we matter too. We know you matter. America already treats white people like they matter. But we're just trying to tell everybody, hey, we matter too, right? And Kanye West consistently acts like I guess I can't say this word, but the COON word. Some people say KOON. Yeah, he acts like that, seeking for white validation. So we're not surprised when he marries a white woman, right? We're not surprised about that because it's part of the validation seeking. So should we be upset when he marries said white woman and she extracts this substantial amount of money from him on a monthly basis? I don't think so. And what's really interesting to me is a lot of people will see this $2.4 million per year and not think it's a lot of money because they're like, oh, that's not that much money. But when you put that over a 10-year span, that's about 20, well, I do the math, right? $24 million. And then you keep multiplying that by more and more. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Children don't cost that much money. Yes, you're billionaires, but no one's spending that much money on their kids. It's a lot of money, especially for a woman that said she signed a prenup, she didn't want alimony, and she's good. That's a lot of money. Children don't cost that much, even if you're a billionaire. They don't. So it's kind of ridiculous to me that amount, which is so substantial, was even requested in the first place, because she made it a point that they need to divorce as soon as possible. They don't need any money from each other whatsoever, but yet you're still asking for $200,000 a month. And the reason why this is such a big thing for me to point out is because as much as everyone thinks that Kanye West is so rich, before I even get into that, let's just go into the other examples of white people who have or interracial marriages where the woman comes out with more. We look at Tiger Woods. In his situation, his wife got $110 million out of 6 years of marriage. She got $110 million. At the time, his net worth was about $700 million. So she got a substantial amount of money from that divorce. Yes, he cheated on her and embarrassed her in the public, but let's also remember she attacked him too. If you go look into some of those details. So she wasn't innocent entirely herself and walked away with $100 million. And when you just think about everything Umar Johnson said, you kind of start to understand why this is extremely problematic. So now let me get into the next point. And this is why this amount of money is substantial. You guys think Kanye West is so rich. He's a billionaire. He doesn't need this money, blah, blah, blah. But let's hear about Kanye's money and his net worth from him, from the horse's mouth, right? Let's hear what he has to say about his money.
I'm going to war. I don't have endless resources. I only have honestly only maybe $120 million in my account. But what I'm not going to let happen is...
So he says he has $120 million in his account, approximately. But that was in the Piers Morgan interview that he did, which kind of stirred some of that backlash that he got. But he goes on to explain what's happening to his assets after Adidas dropped him and after he made these awful statements about Jewish people, and see what he said here.
My engineer, first year I managed to keep my account above 100 million until I got hit with $27 million of taxes last week. Then my payroll got cut by Adidas immediately, which was against the contract. And then I flew 2 members of Cohen Resnick in last night, and they exposed the extra 40 million that they have been hiding from me of bills. What I'm saying is I'm being honest to you guys. I've been humble, and I have no reason to lie. My family was taken away from me. My reputation has been smeared. I get it. So let's close with a prayer.
So we heard it from him directly. They're literally trying to go after the money that he has left in his account. Everything. Because he went out and spoke out about how much money is in his account. He went out and he said, so they're trying to go for everything in his account. So by the end of this, yes, he's worth $400 million in assets. He is about 120 liquid cash, right? Only Kanye knows his money situation. And they say the richer you are, the less amount of money, like the less you know about the number, like how much money is in your account. So maybe he doesn't know. But for him to keep up with these payments for the next, how old what's her name? 8 years to, 16. I don't know how old the youngest one is. 16 years. You have to keep up with these payments until they're 18. $2.4 million a year. That's a lot of money. That's assuming that for the next 16 years, he's going to keep earning the kind of money he's earning right now. You guys have to understand these things. Like, a lot of people will see that and be like, that's not a lot of money. And they think that every piece of money that he has in his account needs to go into this one thing. But when someone like him that, probably the richer you are, the more money, more problems, more obligations, more expenses, more things to pay for. To add another bill of $2.4 million a year, and you don't know that you're going to consistently earn money because he's been blacklisted, that's pretty tough if you ask me. And I think Kim Kardashian, that's worth $1.8 billion, should not be taking that much money from him. And yes, that's her company's valuation. Sure, that's not liquid. But I don't think she needs to be taking that much money. If anything, she needs to give him money. She's the rich one. He's still rich. But she's the billionaire. She needs to be giving him money. And so, but ultimately, do I feel sorry for Kanye? Obviously, as a human, I do get it, and I do feel sorry for him for the most part. But to me, it's kind of like, because of the person that we're dealing with, the things that the denigration of Black people that we've seen him perpetuate, because of this sort of like marrying outside your race, because it gives you more proximity to whiteness and the white boys club, the Donald Trumps and the Elon Musks, and it gives you more of that white validation that you so desperately seek, associating with people like Candace Owens. Because of all those things, to me, I don't feel sorry for Mr. Kanye West. I don't. And I think, this is the bed he made. He needs to lie in it. Ultimately, is he going to be able to pay the money? Who knows? Who knows? And the last thing I just wanted to point out is that it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the Kardashians react to him not paying up on time, if he doesn't pay on time. Because, Kanye's not a consistent person. So I'm not going to be surprised if he doesn't pay some months. And what is Kim going to do? Is that going to be her weapon? If he goes out on a rant on Twitter, is she going to say, you haven't paid child support? Is that what's going to happen? I think he's going to appeal, because I don't think he can afford it right now. Because of all the things that, we've heard him say. I don't think he can afford it with all his living expenses and all the things he's trying to build. I don't know that he can afford it. Yes, he has the money. Doesn't mean he can afford it for what he's trying to build, right? But Kim Kardashian, I definitely see the Kardashians capitalizing on this. I definitely see them, using this, if he tries, as, their little trump card to, if he tries to say anything crazy, Kim might just be like, pay child support, Kanye. You're a deadbeat dad. They will definitely push that branding as much as possible. But I think in his defense, I don't think that could be used as calling him a deadbeat dad, because you're a billionaire, Kim. You're worth $1.8 billion. He's worth 400 million. You don't, and yes, you have primary custody, but you don't need him to be paying $200. You spend $200,000 a month on your kids. Or is it 400,000 because they're claiming that they're splitting the expenses of the kids? You spend $400,000 a month on your kids each. Like, hey, You tell me. I don't know. It just sounds a little fishy. It sounds a little fishy. I had another point. I posted this like little rant on social media, and let me read through why I was going over this sort of black men that don't date their race or don't marry in their race, and how we see there are two kind of phenomenons. We have the Kanye West, just goes directly for the white woman. Then we have the polygamous men, and maybe I'll make another video for that. But the polygamous men, I do have a few videos on polygamous men. And we have the polygamous men, and they tend to date multitudes of black women because, first of all, they know white women won't tolerate that, right? But in a way, it's still kind of denigrating black women, and it still plays into Umar Johnson's point. So we have the people like Diddy, Jamie Foxx, Nick Cannon, Common. They date, multitudes of black women. They don't marry them. And they sort of like feed into this idea or this thing where only 1 in 4 black women actually get married in America. And so what does this stem from? What does all of this stem from? Because the whole issue here is not just Kanye West and Kim, but the fact that Kanye West and Kim represent how the black family is dead or dying. The black family has been broken up since slavery. So American descendants of slaves, specifically the men, don't have marriage in their culture. I made another video about this. Go check it out. But what we see in history is that during slavery, there was marriages. After slavery, immediately after slavery, there was a high percentage of marriage. You have to understand, during slavery, there was marriage, but it would be harder to get married then because a man could just steal your wife and rape her or steal her and sell her off. So they were, traditionally, the black family has always been broken. But after slavery, we saw this, statistic that shows that black people were marrying more. It's probably one of the most marriageable times in black America. And that was, I think it was for security. It was for unification. And that was kind of the Reconstruction era where black people were sort of building. And I think it was essential for that. But right after that, not right after, but you start seeing it deteriorate again up to today. It's so bad that only 1 in 4 black women get married. And I don't know the statistic for men, but it's not far off because not that many black men actually marry white women. So only the percentages that tend to have money. So I think it's about 80% of black men marry black women. And so that means not a lot of black men are getting married in general either. So when you think about this hypergamy mentality, it actually stems from Africa. Like it still happens today. Black men, they're hypergamous. And this is like traditionally a culture and people use that to defend it. It's traditionally a culture, but that type of thing doesn't work in America because you can't get away with hypergamy in America. Did I say hypergamy? I meant polygamy. Sorry. You can't get away with polygamy in America. It's illegal. And so these black men that want to be polyamorous can't be polygamous because it's illegal. So they just tend to not marry. Then we have the fact that in America today, women have exploited alimony, making it unfair for men. This has scared men out of marriage. That's just why you see men like Jamie Foxx and all these people refuse to get married, not believe in marriage, because like if they are quote unquote high value man and they want to keep all their wealth, they don't want to give $100 million away like Tiger Woods or $200,000 away in child support. You'll see them just kind of not marry. They still tend to have kids though. They'll have kids, but they don't marry. And it's because, sure, I'll give money for child support, but I'm not giving you any money as the woman. And then You know, and to me, unfortunately, the problem with this is that many black men look up to people like Diddy and his polyamorous ways, and his lifestyle, and they want to replicate that state even in their state of poverty. They want to replicate his polyamory even in their own poverty, and they do that, but they don't know that that's what's keeping them poor. Because when it comes down to it, 86% of millionaires are married, and having multiple baby mamas is a surefire way for a wealthy man to lose his legacy and create middle-class children. So sure, Diddy's kids are going to stay rich, but yours won't. Yours won't. Yours most likely won't. But we see so many people do this. Like, look at Nick Cannon. He seems rich, you know, if I look at his net worth, but apparently he's struggling. Apparently his child support payments are like almost like $2 million a year or something crazy. And he's struggling because the thing about a family unit, there is a power of compounding interest. When you take all your money and all your resources and you keep it into one family, there's compounding interest in that. And you can build from that. It's kind of when you think about an S&P 500, S&P 500, like the fund, right? The mutual fund. Imagine putting $100,000 into one account and then putting $10,000 into 10 accounts. What happens? It has a 10% annual interest rate, right? The $100,000 is going to grow exponentially. You're going to get $10,000 at the end of the year in profit, right? But in the 10 accounts that you put $10,000, you're going to get $1,000 at each account. Well, actually, it's the same thing. No, but it's not, though. You're going to get $1,000 in each account, but you're going to still lose out by some fractions, ultimately. Because it's 10 point something percent. But my point here is, maybe that math is wrong. We'll look it up. But basically, compounding interest, my point here is compounding interest is more effective when you keep all your eggs in one basket, you know, for it to grow. Like, okay, let me give you a better example. Forget the S&P 500 example. Imagine you have 3 farms versus 1 farm, and you have only, let's say, I don't know how many liters of water. You have a finite amount of water, and that water you take and you water that 1 farm versus the same amount of water you take and you water 3 farms. Which farm is going to grow faster? The 1 farm versus the 3 farms, right? So it's just better to have your kids with 1 woman and marry that woman, because marriage is economical. But the problem here is when you have multiple different baby mamas, you're spreading your seed in different households, you're creating this division. So you're losing out on compounding interest. You're creating kids that have been brought up in broken homes. You're having kids that have, like, you know, single mothers raising them, and we know there are a lot of issues with that. You're just creating dynamics that are going to keep your kids in a state of poverty, really. And so, yeah, there's a reason why families that are united do better. There's a reason. And so anyway, long story short, when it comes down to it, we need to just pay attention, not just to interracial dating, but we should look at self-hatred in the Black community and how Black men are kind of falling for, because they're kind of the gatekeepers of marriage. They're the ones that ask women to get married. I just think about Black economic empowerment. And when you think about that, it's very important for Black men to keep their wealth within the Black community, to grow the Black community. And if they don't do that, don't complain like Kanye West about the issues that you face as a Black man in America. Don't complain about it, because you're creating those issues. You're perpetuating those issues. And it just is what it is. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. I'm a little tired today. I don't know if I delivered that well, but I did what I had to do. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Peace and stream.